a little baseball talk to break up the monotony with the pennant races right around the corner. Steve Gardner, a great writer for USA Today, always kind enough to join us for a couple moments on a busy Friday. How you been, Steve?
Great, Rich. How about you?
I am doing very well. Thank you for asking. And I'll tell you, you look at some of these teams right now. We always talk about those teams wanting to make that playoff push. And then there are some teams that we figure out they're going to be either pretenders, they're going to be contenders. I want to start with the AL with you for a moment because obviously we saw what the Yankees have done over the last month of the season. It's pretty evident that they are going to this youth movement, and you're seeing it with Judge, you're seeing it with Sanchez. We saw it with every player of note that they got rid of. And what's interesting to me is they're still mathematically hanging around. Look, they're not a good team. I don't think they're a playoff team. But at least you're getting to see what they have for the future. And I think that's something, if you're a Yankees fan, you certainly hang your hat on that.
Right, yeah. You wanted to see this team compete, but once it became obvious that, the guys that they were counting on were not part of the future, getting to see a glimpse of what could be, next season has to be pretty exciting. Aaron Judge has got some great power. He's going to be starting the rest of the way. Chad Green even came in and struck out 11 Blue Jays in his last start. So, even on the pitching side of things, there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. But you're right. Gary Sanchez, probably the catcher of the future, very good hitter. I saw him hit in the Arizona Fall League, and he was outstanding. So, there are definitely some good pieces in place, and I think it's coming together maybe even a little bit quicker than even the Yankees could have hoped.
Yeah, and I made the joke on Twitter the other day for everyone getting all pumped up and excited about Gary Sanchez. The first thing I thought of, even though it was a different position and the hot streak, I was thinking of Kevin Moss for a moment. And then I had my the caveat with that was, we kind of know how that wound up and how that ended. But no, you're right. I mean, I think at this stage of the game, you realize that it is a major changing of the guard, and franchises go through this, right? There's those periods where they dominate for a while, they're spending money, then they realize it can't always be like that, and I think we're seeing that especially with the Yankees, and coincidentally, the team they're playing, my next question, the Angels, it just seems as though, to me, it seems Mike Scioscia's just buying some time here, and I'm just wondering, I get it. He's got the equity building with the franchise. He's won a World Series with the franchise. He's been one of those solid managers throughout the course of a decade plus or so with the Los Angeles Angels. But I just look at this team right now, 51-70. I know they had injuries. I know they're very inconsistent. I know they'll lose 4 or 5, then they'll win 1 or 2. It just seems as though they need a new voice in that dugout. I mean, do you think this is it for Mike Scioscia after this year?
It could be. Billy Epler, the GM, came from the Yankees. They're a very, more sabermetrically friendly than I think the Angels really have ever been, or at least in the Scioscia era. I mean, he's kind of been one of those guys that is more old school. And I think the game, number one, needs to evolve a little bit. And, maybe Scioscia is still a good guy in the dugout. But he's been kind of resistant to change, and as we've seen in his dealings with his GMs over the years. But this team, because of the way that they've been run, kind of Yankee-like, the way that the Yankees used to do, where they'd buy up free agents, and that's what they did with Albert Pujols and Vladimir Guerrero and Josh Hamilton and all those guys looking for the quick fix. And now they're paying the price because their farm system is pretty much picked thin, maybe one of the worst, if not the worst, in all of the major leagues. And they're having to do with guys like Ji-Man Choi in left field and Cliff Pennington at second base and Jeffrey Marte. Mike Trout is there, and there's a legitimate concern with the Angels that Mike Trout is going to basically spend his entire career, unless they somehow work out this huge trade or something, playing for a team that's not going to compete for a World Series title.
Yeah, no, that's actually an interesting point you bring up, and you're talking about a 5-tool player that easily, if he maintains his pace, is going to roller skate right into Cooperstown, and it starts to harken back to you try to think, and I can't think of too many right off the top of my head. I mean, the Mariners did have a little bit of a run there with Griffey Jr., but you're right, you don't want to see a player who's going to play 10, 15 years and put up monster numbers and not even sniff the postseason. Of course, yeah, we can throw Mattingly there as well, but it was a different
Felix
time.
Hernandez,
sure.
too.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. And great segue. Speaking of pitching, I'm looking at J.A. Happ, and I'm trying to figure this out, right? Basically a journeyman pitcher, 33 years of age, 17 wins this year, 17-3 with Toronto. And the more times I watch him, he goes out there. These are not little 5-6 inning starts. I mean, he's given them 6+. He's given them 7 strong. You're seeing the strikeouts. I mean, his last several starts, 6, 7, 9 strikeouts. Respectively. Now, he gave up a couple home runs against the Yankees, but they were still able to win that game. But how do you explain J.A. Happ with 17-3, Mark?
I wish I could. First of all, wins not necessarily the best barometer of which pitchers are good and which pitchers are not. That said, though, he's getting it done for this Blue Jays team, and his ERA right around the 3 mark. And the strikeouts are something that we haven't really seen from him in the past very often. I mean, he's been a guy that may hit, 7, 8 strikeouts per 9, nothing overpowering. His fastball velocity, lower 90s, really, nothing overpowering. How is he doing it? It's a great question. First of all, in terms of allowing a low batting average on balls in play, that's part of it. But you can't kind of fake that for an entire season. And you go back to last year with the Pirates when he just sort of seemed to figure things out, whether that's Ray Searage, the Pirates pitching coach, who's done that with a lot of veteran players. But, here we have a guy who's 33 years old, who's kind of figured things out. And you wouldn't expect him to continue to be able to do this without the dominant stuff in a hitter's park like Toronto is. Yeah, I think we saw Dallas Keuchel kind of take that leap last year in Houston and ride it all the way to the Cy Young Award. I think there are a lot of comparisons, left-handed, starting with both southpaws, with J.A. Happ this year.
2 numbers since a 6-3 loss against the Tigers on June 6th. He's won. It looks like he's won 3, 6, 9, 11 out of his last 12 decisions. His ERA in June was 5.28. His ERA in July was 1.44.
Yeah, just amazing. And that streak, again, it's all controlling the strike zone and getting the hitters to hit your pitches. He's been doing that just outstandingly well.
Halfway home on a Friday, 1:30 on 97.3 ESPN FM. Rich Quinones here. Steve Gardner, kind enough to join us for a couple moments. Does a great job covering baseball for USA Today. Right now, with about, what are we looking at, 30-odd games, or about a month or so to go in this season, a month plus. Who's your AL MVP?
Yeah, we were talking about this at work today, or the other day, and it's a difficult situation to figure out all of these postseason awards. In terms of AL MVP,
Altuve, Encarnacion.
Yeah, the thing is, Mike Trout may be having the best season of anybody, but he's not going to get consideration because the Angels have been so bad. I think Jose Altuve has had a great season. Again, the Astros are fading. I think your MVP frontrunner right now is David Ortiz or maybe Manny Machado. I think those two guys, they have carried their teams the most and throughout the entire season. Ortiz for his leadership abilities and everything. I think the Baseball Writers Association has kind of been moving away from the narrative and looking more towards the actual stats in recent years. But it's hard not to think of David Ortiz and say, wow, one of the best seasons. He's leading everybody in the majors in on-base plus slugging. So it's not like the numbers don't say the same thing. It would be a real storybook ending, depending on whether the Red Sox can get into the playoffs and all of that, if David Ortiz retires as the reigning American League MVP.
Wow. I mean, that's almost as like, and again, you're more of a history buff. I mean, more in your, I can just throw this out. Koufax, didn't he win the Cy Young and then retire?
Yep. He retired at his peak for injury purposes. Obviously, he was still younger than a lot of pitchers in the game. But in terms of a player at over 40 having as great a season as Ortiz is,
sure.
Maybe I don't know that it may be unprecedented.
He's going to drive in probably about 120 when it's all said and done. His batting average is well over 300, right around 314. That would be something. And you're right. I mean, it would even more to stick it to the Yankees, right? Because here's a guy that has a farewell tour, and then all of a sudden they get in the playoffs. Everyone knows what he certainly does in the playoffs. Let's switch gears to the NL. I am saying it right now. You can put a nail in the Mets' coffin. They are done. They are finished. They're not recovering. The injuries have hit them. Collins has been a horrible manager. and you've got that. We were banking on the pitching if you're a Mets fan, and then boom, everything's going by the wayside. The offense has struggled. I think they're done. I think they're shot. I don't think they have anything left.
Yep. You've hit it, and now that they've gone below 500, I think it starts to sink in for Mets fans. Steven Matz having his start, bump back.
Yep.
I don't know if he's going to finish out the season. They could get to a point, and sitting 11 and a half games behind the Nationals in the NL East, could just get to a point where they say, we don't want to push these pitchers any further, and maybe shut down Matz, shut down Noah Syndergaard. Jacob deGrom is still pitching well and reasonably effective, so go ahead and let him finish the season out. But I don't know what more the Mets have to gain. Yeah, you made the trade for Jay Bruce and tried to insert a little extra offense in there, but it's really not paying off, and this team is definitely not going anywhere now that they've been passed by the Marlins in the standings, and who knows, the Phillies could even jump up and catch them here before too long.
Two more before I let you get out of here. Got about a minute plus to go. Do you foresee Alex Rodriguez playing anymore? Do you believe Alex Rodriguez is done?
Yeah, I believe he's done. It's all talk. It's great speculation, and going back to Miami, where he has his home and his family, would be a nice, easy thing to say. But in terms of skills, he's just not going to be able to help a major league team right now. He can't really play the field, and nobody's going to really want to tie up their DH spot to have him in there.
We saw Chase Utley come back to Philly with a bang the other night, smacking 2 home runs to grand slam, got a great standing ovation. Look, good job for the Phillies fans. It just shows how much that Utley meant to them as a player with the organization. We've been not making the argument, but more or less, bar talk, so to speak. When you look at Chase Utley, forget about the injuries. Right now, at this moment, and I don't. I think he's a Hall of Famer, Phillies Hall of Famer, Wall of Fame. But do you think Chase Utley is a Hall of Famer?
I don't think so, at least not at this stage, unless he has, a couple more huge years left. But, he's 37 now, and because of the injuries and the time missed, he's not going to accumulate all the hits. I mean, he's at, 1,700 or so in terms of his career. It's been a great ride, and he's been certainly one of the key players in Phillies lore over the last 25, 30 years.
Sure, no doubt.
But in terms of, Lou Whitaker's not in the Hall of Fame, I think you probably put Chase Utley kind of close to that kind of
that's a great
player.
That's a great comparison. It was Trammell and Whitaker. It was 84 Tigers. And you got Rollins you got Rollins and Utley.
Keystone players, World Series winners.
Yeah, absolutely. See, you forget as much baseball as I'll probably ever know in my life. So I just throw all the useless, the good stats right there to you. All right, listen, good stuff. I appreciate it. Pennant race is heating up. We'll talk next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks for a couple moments, Steve.
Sounds great, Rich.
All right, you got it. Take care of yourself. Steve Gardner.